Hi, my name is Dana Golden. Today I'm going to be talking about the costs of environmental policies. So the last time we talked about the benefits, this entire time has been about cost-benefit analysis. Now I'm going to talk about what are the costs of inputting environmental policies and how should we think about them, how should we mitigate them. So of course you have loss of innovation, loss of economic activity. So it's possible that by preventing certain activities that generate pollution, you're also preventing those economic activities, and you're causing harm either to the economy or you're causing some people to lose jobs. And then also possible that by restricting some forms of activity, you're going to cause a loss of innovation. I would encourage you to not just think about this as a cost, but potentially a benefit of regulation, because sometimes regulations can cause people to create innovations to make their technology more environmentally friendly and sustainable. You also have the cost of abatement, which is the cost of preventing certain kinds of pollution or stopping certain kinds of pollutions and emissions. And you have harms to people who live in the areas, particularly with land reclamation and some green energy. People don't like wind farms for reasons I will never understand. If you want to put a wind farm right by Stony Brook or right by my house, go ahead. But a lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people would like there to not be wind farms anywhere near them. So the with and without principle, you can't solely consider the current costs versus costs after the policy. You have to consider costs in a world with the policy versus costs in a world without the policy. If the costs are 100 now, but will increase to 150 with the regulation, and 120 without the regulation, the cost of the regulation is 30. There are different types of costs. You can think of the social cost of the regulation, think of the cost of enforcing the regulation, the cost of paying someone to write up the regulation and then enforce it, and you can think of the cost to innovation and the loss of an efficient outcome. Maybe the classic example I think I talked about earlier in the class, the catalytic converter, where someone else was developing a better engine and you stop them from doing that by making them invest in this expensive piece of technology for preventing pollution. So how do you get cost out of it? This is a historically very hard problem. In industrial organization, most of our analysis is based on cost. There's an entire subfield of industrial organization dedicated to figuring out the cost and the marginal cost. You can use surveys, but people often have incentives to misrepresent historical data. Maybe you're a government agency. You can say, give me some data. You can try and work out for a representative firm what their costs are, maybe building it up, maybe asking different firms. There are a lot of issues here. It's very hard to get cost data, and this is the problem the industry struggles with. It's very easy if you're the EPA or the FTC, and you can just tell people to give you the data. Regulated firms have private information with their cost incentives to lie. So often they'll misrepresent their costs to make it look like regulation is going to be more costly to them. You know, if you put in place a regulation, you have to put out a period of comment where you ask the players in the industry what they think. And they'll often be like, oh my God, this regulation is the worst. It's going to make it so hard on us. Why are you making our lives hard? And then, you know, they're fine when the regulation is put in place quite often. It turns out firms are pretty good at adapting to most regulations. It turns out most firms are profitable enough to live with somewhat limited levels of environmental regulation. That's not to say you shouldn't be sympathetic to the idea that firms are having to pay costs to abate their emissions. So the cost estimate may not represent the minimum abatement cost. They may have an incentive to say, actually, it's going to cost us this much when we use this technology, but they're using, in practice, a cheaper, easier technology. You also want to look at the distribution of costs. We talked a lot about the distribution of benefits, the distribution on a vertical and horizontal equity. So regulation affects the cost of one industry, and this can impact employment and costs of other industries. It might also be important to think about regional differences. Some groups might benefit, and some other groups might pay the cost. This is certainly the case in flood insurance and in a lot of hurricane prevention policies where the coastal areas, particularly down south, benefit, and a lot of other people who will never be affected by hurricanes pay for it. This is definitely the case for a lot of agricultural policies like agricultural insurance, where there's a very concentrated benefit and dispersed cost. That's good and bad. It's important to not only examine the total cost, but how these costs are distributed. Are the benefits going to the people who are paying the costs? Should they be going to the people who are paying the costs? And are we making poor people pay for rich people's benefit? Or are we making rich people pay for poor people's benefit? Or are we making everyone pay for everyone's benefit? There are also environmental costs of environmental protection. Just because you think that you're helping protect the environment doesn't mean you actually are. So reducing untreated domestic waste outflows in rivers often leaves quantities of solid waste that need disposal. Same thing with creating a nuclear reactor that stops carbon dioxide emissions, but now you're left with all this uranium to dispose of. Reducing airborne sulfur dioxide emissions from power plants leaves highly concentrated sludge that needs disposal. I have a friend who's an engineer who's doing a lot of work right now on industrial sludge waste removal. And then the mitigation cost must be included as part of the total costs of overall pollution reduction. You have to think about, what is it going to cost to stop this problem that I'm now creating, even if the problem you're creating is smaller? And you also have to think about the enforcement costs. How much is it going to cost to enforce this regulation and make sure it's done well? You also have the social cost of regulation. There's a loss of jobs. There's potentially a shrinking of some markets, as maybe resources move to lower value uses. Here's a case where we have a regulation of sugar. We put in place a tax on sugar, and this shifts back the supply curve, and now prices go up, and that's great for some sugar farmers, but the quantity goes down, which is bad for others. And the price going up is not that good, because probably the regulation is something like a tax that is going to decrease demand without a corresponding increase in revenue. So it's just going to be a decrease in revenues, and it's going to make it harder. I say you're poor sugar farmers, LOL. I'm extremely sympathetic to most farmers. I have a particular opinion that I think is shared by a lot of people who've interacted with the agricultural industry or agricultural statistics about sugar farmers and the sugar industry in the United States. I'm not a fan of them, both in terms of, like, sugar is how we poison our children, but also in terms of, like, it's just a concentrated industry run by old money in Florida that has no care for the fact that they're destroying the Everglades to poison our children. So levelized cost of energy, definition, formula, LCOE. But yeah, of course, those people are losing jobs, and that's bad for them. And resources are having to move away from their higher value use and this industry to other uses. And obviously, we should be considering that in the cost of regulation. Levelized cost of energy, definition, formula. LCOE represents the average cost per unit of electricity generated over the lifetime of the project. So you're summing up. Here we have investment, which is the fixed cost. We have the operation and maintenance costs, and we have the fuel costs. And then we're dividing it by the interest rate, so we're discounting it over time. And this is divided by the energy, and then we're discounting everything over time, and they're using this to calculate LCOE. So we're discounting the costs over every period, and we're dividing by the discounted energy over every period to levelize, get the cost in terms of the amount of energy produced. So here's an example of LCOE calculation. Calculate the LCOE for a power plant with the following parameters. You have a $1 million investment up front. Usually you won't want this in your LCOE calculation as $1 million in the first year. You want to spread it out, because normally the loan, you'll take this out as a loan. You'll have to pay it over several years. So normally you won't have this. In most calculations, you will try to spread this out, particularly for resources like nuclear. They're very long-lived. You have operations and maintenance. You have one person on salary, maybe two at 25. One person at 50 is maybe standard for whatever this is. And then you have fuel costs, $100,000 in fuel costs, and then you're generating $20,000 in electricity. And then you have a discount rate here of 8%. And then you have a project lifetime of 5 years. Very quick decommissioning of this energy source. I don't know where I got these numbers to, like, that's like a very high interest rate, a fast decommissioning source choice. So anyways, discounted cost for each year. You add in investment, you add in operations and maintenance, and you add in fuel. You discount it by R. And then example for year 1, you add these together, divide by 1 plus 0.08 to the first, and you do this for every single year. Here we did discount the first year. You could also do this where the first year, because before the plan is up and running, you don't discount it to reflect the fact that these are sunk upfront on cost that you shouldn't be discounting because you're paying them now. And then you calculate the discount electricity for every year, the amount of electricity produced over the rate. So 20,000 megawatt hours divided by 1 plus 0.08. You get some amount, then you sum the discounted cost of electricity, and then you get an LCOE. And then in order to calculate LCOE, you create columns for I, O, F, and E over the lifetime of the project. You add a column for discount factor in Excel. You calculate the discounted cost for each year, this over this. So you can use MPV here in Excel. You could, I suppose, create an LCOE function. I don't think there's an LCOE function built into Excel. I think you have to use a calculator like the one provided by EPA or the one I'll show you in a moment provided by NREL. Discounted electricity equals electricity over 1 plus R. You sum the discount cost of electricity over all years, and then you use the formula total discount cost over total discount electricity. So the formula discount cost equals, you know, all of this divided by power 1 plus R to the T. You can also just use the MPV formula. You repeat for all rows and sum, and then you use the total discount values to calculate LCOE. And then you might also want to run a sensitivity analysis of LCOE in Excel. You analyze how changes in key parameters like discount rate, fuel cost, electricity generated affect LCOE. So identify variables to test for sensitivity like discount rate, investment cost, and electricity generated. Create a table with rows for the variable values to test and columns for corresponding LCOE. So there's something you want to change. Maybe it's the interest rate. Maybe it's something about the capacity factor. You want to change something to see how that affects LCOE. How you're testing an assumption. You're figuring out how the assumption affects the viability of your project. And then use Excel's data table feature. You input a range of values of chosen variable. You reference the chosen LCOE calculation. And then you recalculate for each input value. And you analyze using graphs, so your boss happy to visualize sensitivity. Here's an example. You have different discount rates, and then as the discount rate goes up, the LCOE also goes up, so the project is higher cost and is less viable, because you need a higher LACE, levelized avoided cost of energy. You need a higher price of electricity to justify it. And here's what that looks like. You have different discount rates with different emissions and inflation, and then different discount rates. You can see how discount rates under different scenarios impact the LCOE of a project. So yeah, how confident are you in your assumptions? How confident are you that this is a good project and that you stand by the calculations you made? And next time we'll talk about some tools to do this with. I hope you have a great day. Thanks.